Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, we're gonna talk about a company called Tastemakers, more commonly known as Arcade1up. They hit the scene in 2018 and they set out to produce a flat-packed, 3/4 scale, plug-and-play arcade experience at home. And they secured some really big licenses between 2018 and now. And at the moment that they were released, I thought it was just gonna be a fly-by-night, kind of a fad thing, Christmas cash grab, and then they'd be, maybe out of business or moving on to other things, because Tastemakers made toys and all sorts of stuff. At the root of Tastemakers, it was a toy company, so that's what they were good at doing, making toys. So I figured, it'd be around for a little while and then it would go the wayside. But maybe kind of think about what was out there before Arcade1up. There was, full-size arcade machines. You could go out and secure your own, in the private market, go buy it, and, go on Facebook Marketplace, go find something. People would shy away from that because they didn't have the know-how to fix it, or it was too cumbersome, or even at sometimes too expensive. And then there was the DIY community, where you'd build a cabinet, sort of like Arcade1up, but more full size in nature. You'd learn MAME, you'd map the controls, you'd have to learn how all the emulators work and the ROMs and all that. Now that's where I started in the hobby. And then I kind of graduated to full-size arcades. And then there was actually kind of more of like the build it yourself from scratch, and that's probably the really, really small percentage of the community. But it made me wonder, what existed before Arcade1up? Did anybody try to actually market a 3/4 scale arcade machine before that? So in this video, we're gonna take a look at a company that did just that. And maybe by looking at the product, yes, I went and bought one on OfferUp, maybe we'll get a glimpse into why they weren't successful. Okay guys, here it is, the Big Electronic Games Ltd. Midway at-home arcade cabinet, which I believe is the first at-home 3/4 scale arcade machine. Now this thing came out in 2005 and it had two variants. There was a Midway version and a Konami version. Both have stellar game lineups actually. I was shocked at the game lineups on these. Now, what I think is interesting is some of the things that are very similar between this offering and Arcade1up. Now, Arcade1up came way later, but there are some similarities. So if you look at the kick plate on this device, it has all the names of the games. So very similar to the Revision 1 Arcade1ups. It had all the names of the games on there. Now, where the differences are is this front kick plate is actually a cabinet that opens, and you can hook up other devices to this because it actually has a CRT in it. Unlike Arcade1up that came out later, like I mentioned, they had an LCD. So it's got a CRT versus an LCD. So that's actually a really cool feature, although it's not very big. It's about 13 inches, and it's not the best quality. It's not an arcade quality. It's really a TV. So you'll see when I show you the back of it. The bezel actually shows you the games and how to play them. So it shows you what buttons you need to use to play each game. Just like the Revision 1 Arcade1up, or the Wave 1 as people in the community call it, the Wave 1 Arcade1ups did not have a light-up marquee, and neither does this. It's a piece of wood. Now, one thing that was really interesting is the build quality of this is pretty bad, actually. The wood is not very thick. It's actually half of what Arcade1up is, so it's, a 1/4 inch thick. So it's really, really thin wood. There is 1/2 inch thick wood in certain sections of it inside to reinforce it, but what you're getting on the external is 1/4 inch. It's really, really thin. So I just thought this is so fun and so interesting, and it's definitely a piece of at-home arcade history. The other thing is the buttons and joysticks leave something to be desired, just like the Wave 1 Arcade1up. Now, Arcade1up never really did a great job making their joysticks and buttons that much better. They made them what I would call acceptable for casual play, but they're definitely not top of the line or anything like that. They're okay clones of what would be more likely a Sanwa button and joystick. So what's the deal with the inside of the cabinet? Well, it's got storage inside so you can actually put in a game console or a VCR at the time. They actually suggest that in the manual that you could put your VCR in it. But you can put a game console and there's a switcher inside, and the switcher switches between the actual PCB inside it and whatever you have attached to the AV inputs, which are composite, by the way. So if I press it over, I can simply turn on my Nintendo here, and we can play some Wild Gunman on a 14-inch screen. Yeah. I'm a crack shot at this. Okay, so how about the gameplay? So when you go to the main menu system, basically it's super easy. You just scroll right or left to pick the game you want. If you have a game and want to know how to play it, you can hit down and it'll tell you, what you do to play that game. Now, what I thought was interesting is Robotron 2084 is on here, and they do have it configured for dual sticks. So that's kind of cool. and it's actually quite fun playing it on here, believe it or not. And I'm actually pretty pumped that they would even put that on a system like this. To get back to the main menu, just hit player 1 and player 2 for a couple of seconds, and then it bounces you right back to the menu. Another thing I thought was kind of interesting, I'm not going to go through every game, is the version of Sinistar on here is unique. Sinistar is a vertical game, and they've actually presented it horizontally, and so it's like a modified ROM. So that's pretty cool, actually. The one thing I did notice about this system overall is the colors seem off, and I don't know if that's just because the monitor over time just kind of got out of whack, and there's really no way to adjust it. That is a downfall of this particular unit. There's no way to actually adjust the colors or the contrast and brightness. I've read on some forums that people have got a wireless remote for it because it is a TV, but I'm not obviously going to go through that lens. This is really just more of a research project for me to see what kind of offerings there were at the time. But yeah, pretty neat, and I'm having a fun time actually playing Sinistar this way. I kind of wish this ROM was accessible to something like Mister. It would be cool to be able to play it this way for Mister. Anyway, we're gonna go back to the main menu. I'll play one more game, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So like I said, the one thing I'm noticing is the fidelity doesn't seem right on the monitor. I don't know, it's like it's not crisp. It's almost like the sharpness or focus is off or something like that. But yeah, there's games like Rampage on here. Like I said, the overall lineup is actually pretty decent for this thing. But when you think about the buttons and the joysticks and the overall build quality, it kind of makes me have a little bit of an appreciation for what Arcade1up has done. You know, I'm by no means saying Arcade1up is amazing and without its flaws, because it definitely has a bunch of them. But it makes you appreciate that, you know, they did it a lot sturdier than this cabinet. The cabinet's pretty rickety, so yeah. Trying to play Defender on this is really difficult because of the button layout. So, you know, obviously when you have like a multi-system like this and you're trying to do a bunch of different things, it's hard to, you know, get the buttons right. But yeah, this is very infuriating trying to play Defender on, you know, you kind of need the unique controls for Defender. There's other games, most of the other games on here actually play halfway decent. As far as potential modifications to the controls go, there's this panel right here that comes off, and you have to take off a bunch of screws to even gain access to the buttons, but they're kind of mostly proprietary. You know, they've got, you know, they do have regular connections where you could connect a micro switch or something, but the button size is not a standard button size. So, and this is a plastic control panel. So would it be worth your time to mod this? Not really. This would be something that you just buy and enjoy the way it is. And like I said, the sticks are not, they're pretty janky. They do have micro switches inside, but it's just not great stuff. You know, it's not arcade quality stuff by any means. But would it be worth modding back then? I don't think so. But hey, I mean, I'm sure people did it, but is it worth it? In my opinion, no. The PCB is right here. It's just a closed system. It's got some ribbon cables for the controls, and then this is just your AV composite cable that goes directly to this sort of consumer grade monitor right here.
Hey guys, it's Final Thoughts time. So why did the Big Electronic Games product not take off? Why did it fail? First, I think the price point was high at $500. Now, it did have 12 games, so there's a lot of value there, but it kind of didn't focus on any one game. It was sort of this like just crazy multicade artwork. So I think it probably didn't really pull on the nostalgia heartstrings because it just said Midway. Some people may not know that Joust was made by Midway, so maybe if it just said Joust, it would pull on more people. So I think the attention wasn't quite there. When Arcade1up launched, the price point was significantly cheaper than this. It was $299 and $50 for the riser. So about $350 all in investment. So I think, you know, over the years, Arcade1up has raised their prices quite a bit, but that's after lots of marketing, some product improvements, and a lot more brand awareness, plus a loyal fan base. My other suspicion is that the marketplace just wasn't ready for a product like this in 2005. And the company had only secured one retailer from what I can see, and that was Target. Where Arcade1up, when they launched in 2018, they had one of the biggest brick and mortar retailers in the world, which was Walmart, so the exposure was huge. In summary, I think Arcade1up just did it better. They focused on marquee titles to pull on people's nostalgic heartstrings. Sure, it's not at all arcade authentic, but those people that walked by it and said, oh man, I remember Galaga or Pac-Man or Final Fight or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, they had all these titles, Street Fighter. They had all these titles that they knew would pull on people. So for the casual gamer who remembers their time in the arcade, it was kind of a perfect way to grab their attention. And maybe these customers had no desire to ever buy a full-size arcade machine, but in their mind, this was a good enough product for them. And now, Arcade1up could release almost anything and their loyal fan base would buy it despite the issues it has. It's totally insane, and they'll buy every single one. It's absolutely crazy. So they did it right. I don't know if it was marketing, I don't know if it was timing, I don't know what it is, but they definitely have proven that this is a successful market. And if there is a positive silver lining to all this, it's that it's drawing more attention to some of these arcade games that have been dormant for years. Sure, there's hobbyists like myself that have always loved them, and there's a lot of people like you guys out there that love these products, but then the thought of ever being able to build an actual arcade in your house with real machines, they're heavy, they cost a lot, you don't want to fix them. They succeeded in providing something to fill that niche. Now, what I would encourage people to do is, if you do enter the hobby and you have that passion and you want to get into it further and you feel like you have the will, definitely consider looking into real arcades and learning how to restore them and things like that. We need more people in the hobby to sort of graduate from these. But I do think it's a great entry point for someone that wants to scratch the itch of arcade gaming, but it isn't at all arcade authentic, and I just want people to realize that. Is it a good alternative? Sure, it really is, and for me, it's a positive thing if people can get into arcade gaming, spread the word about some of these amazing games from the past. That's really all I have for this episode. Definitely give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Put your comments below. I think this will stir up a lot of interesting conversation, and consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy this content. That's it for now, and we will see you on the next one.